about you, Tom?
But what? Buyer's remorse?
Do you ever get buyer's remorse?
Yeah, my house.
Shit, that is
All right.
the most high ticket
Actually-
of them all.
Well, Tom's also wearing like a $6,000 watch.
No,
so did
man.
you ever get buyer's remorse
No,
for
it's like
Wait,
so.
Yeah, tell us the
tell
story
us about
about
the
that.
house because
Yeah.
you know a lot of people like who are watching this, they're like, man, I want to buy a house. But when you say like, you know what, one of my biggest regrets is buying a house. Like, I would love to hear more about that, man.
Yeah. So on the topic of buyer's remorse, right?
Yeah.
It's always a conflicting priority or opportunity cost. That's why you're having buyer's remorse.
Yeah,
'Cause you're thinking
opportunity
about
cost.
what I can do with that money for something else, and you're not sure.
Right.
So that's why I say that, because I got buyer's remorse with my house, buying a house at 24 years old, putting a 20% down payment on it, right? It was buyer's remorse, but I was stuck with it because I wanted to return a house, but you can't return a house. You have to go through the process of selling it, and then I would lose more
You
money.
lose money on it.
You see what I'm
yeah.
saying? So that means I was stuck with it. Now, the reason why I had buyer's remorse for it is because I know I could do a lot more with that money at that age, whether to invest it better than a house. And then at the time, I didn't need to have all this space. Make sense?
Yeah.
Like I was traveling so much, and I could have easily just stayed in a cheap apartment relative
That's
to a
right.
house,
Yeah.
and then stack on and continue to invest that money over time until it would make sense. So that I didn't have a clarity or vision of why I bought the house. I did it out of proving my parents. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Or impressing people that you
no,
haven't
it
met
wasn't
yet.
even that. It was just proving to my parents that I don't need you. I can take care of myself, and I got a house. You know,
Huh.
and at 24, right? It's almost like that, but it got away with like it wasn't like buying a house where like, oh, I'm gonna get married, kids, family, settling down, because I didn't know what I was doing. So not having that clear goal and vision, that it didn't align. I just did it out of trying to prove my parents wrong that I can take care of myself, and I'm 24 and I can put 20% down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I meant by that house was a buyer's remorse. And I wish if there was one thing I had to do in my life to ever change, was that not to buy that house.
Huh.
But over time, you learn to accept it, and say, okay, I've got a place to live. I can't complain. Most people want to get a house, but like at the end of the day, it's just one of those things that, personally for me, that's my biggest buyer's remorse.
If you're to go back in time, one of the things that you said was that you would invest into other things. What kind of things would you invest in if you could go back in time, man?
Well, it's like I actually had an opportunity to would have bought like an investment property versus buying a house. You see, it
What's
would have
the
been best use of it. Because then I'm actually renting. It becomes an asset, like a true asset, like income asset, right?
Yeah.
Versus just like you're living in your asset, right? So, and you can actually do a multi-unit where actually living there might make more sense. A small multi-unit place, and rent out the other, units. You see,
Sure.
so it would have been make more sense to put that money there versus just buying like a small family home,
Yeah.
right? And renting out the entire home, as an example. But I still my living space I'm sharing with them. You see, so I could have done that differently, or also investing into just continue to stocks and other investments that I used to do before, and just maxed out on everything.
Yeah. Because like, what's the yeah, I'm pretty anti-house too, bro. So like anti-living in houses and stuff like that. But
Sure.
I guess what's the return? Like, what's the return on a typical, like, if you buy a single family small home, like, what's the typical return on it?
It depends on the location, right?
yeah, sure.
When we talk about LA or New York or Boston, those locations, the market's a lot more ludicrous, right?
Yeah.
But I'm from the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
And the homes aren't like crazy growing and real, you know what I mean? So it really depends on location. But what I tell people is that only get it if you have a sense of purpose. If you're buying it as an investment property, then don't buy a small family home. That's a small family home. Go get a multi-unit or something else where you're actually trying to generate income from it, right? But because at the end of the day, you're going to deal with the problems of that home and like whatever it is. Unless you're going to be flipping homes, that's different. Unless it's your intent, your goal. Like if you're never going to plan to live in it, it's okay to buy these small family homes, right? But if you're just starting off and you're trying to think, oh, I'm going to buy a home and rent it out, but like really ask yourself, like, you're going to be stuck with that property. You'll be living there, right? And so, but at the end of the day, the way I look at it is that just knowing what you want, right? And
Yeah.
as long as it serves that purpose, that's all it is.
Everything comes down to what is the intent here?
Right.
What is the purpose?
Don't do it just because everyone else is doing it, or just because the market's great or interest rates are low and you get that FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Because the way I look at it, these things come and go, right? When you ask about, do you ever fear that if I don't buy it today, it's not going to be there tomorrow? Well, I guarantee opportunities come and go all the time. Right?
Sure.
If you don't find that perfect house, I guarantee down the road you'll go find another house.
But if you found a Lambo in China that was being manufactured and was only $5,000, right? But if it came
Probably
overseas,
bootleg if it's in China, bro.
that's true. They're not. It's not, okay. Fine. Say
But-
you have a great relationship with this Italian supplier because now you know it's legit. Okay.
That's legit.
And yeah, and he's like, hey, just for 1 day only, it's $5,000, but it doesn't serve your purpose.
But you came in there looking at it for intent, meaning that if you were giving a deal and you could flip that, if you got a good deal on
guess
that
so.
Lambo. You see?
Yeah.
You're not just looking at it just for looking at a Lambo. You're a different class of person if you're looking at a Lambo, right? Unless you're trying I'm just into the car flipping business.
Yeah, but I've also heard, just on that note, that Lambos are the worst types of cars to flip.
Really?
Yeah, because are Lambo owners mostly? I guess most of them buy used Lambos, or they buy new Lambos, and then they just finance or lease. I don't know. No one here's a Lambo owner,
I'm not a car guy. The only car guy is like you two, I guess.
I mean,
to a degree. But I
no,
don't,
most people who get Lambos, they have to be on like a list, right? These are all like kind of like on a reserve where you kind of order it. So
Sure.
just people who just know what they want, they end up leasing it, like a lot of the business owners, right? But when it comes down to like outside of that and you try and lease it, people always lease it because the depreciation that you get hit,
Yeah.
you're gonna end up outright buying it, right? So who knows, because you don't know who's actually leasing it and actually buying it. It's two different
That's
set
true.
of financial, because a lot of business owners usually lease it and you just write it off as a business expense.
fleecing it is
Yeah.
what some people actually say.
Dude. Oh, crazy.
But this is all good information, and it gives us a perspective of Tom. Tom has a YouTube channel, by the way, guys. So go check out Tom's YouTube
Now these are
channel.
again, guys. This is strictly my opinion. I always feel like I'm like totally against it, but this is just because of my experience and how I feel about it, right?
Dude, everything that comes out of my mouth is my experience and my opinion.
but I
like
know.
it's not,
Like-
it's not my area of expertise. I'm just saying it.
Whether it's right or wrong, it's just how I feel, because like even when you do the simple math, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're not gonna come out with a very high return investment on a whole house, typically, unless you're living in like a real estate market like LA or in California or the East Coast.
And know what's pretty crazy about that? A lot of people are like, I made so much money on this house, but they forget to adjust for inflation and all that as well.
Well, it's everything. It's also taxes. It is everything. Remember that kid that
Your
we talked
income.
to? Was it Zach, the other kid that he has a dozen properties and he's only like 20 years old, right?
21.
21. Okay, fine. But the point is that he knew what he needed to, like he had to go and buying these investments. He's not living in them, right? He's just buying these investment properties, you see? So that's why if you're going to get into real estate, then get into real estate that way. Don't just buy a home thinking, oh, I'm going to turn a profit. Because guess what? If you're buying a home, you're most likely trying to sell it down and have a family.
Yeah,
Your intent is not to sell it and make money out of it,
that's true.
you see? So
Why can't I get paid to sell